Hello, this is AstrologerCoach Sonja Francis, and today we're going to be talking about the upcoming solar eclipse, which is a powerful new moon which takes place at 4 degrees of Capricorn on December 26th at 12:13 a.m. East Coast time in the US, which is New York time. So nice and early, right around midnight, and 5:13 a.m. London time. And so this, of course, this eclipse is not just a new moon cycle, but it's also a new eclipse cycle. And solar eclipses are extra powerful new moons, and they take place approximately every 6 months. So we will also be talking about setting solar eclipse intentions for this cycle. And the best time to do so is I'm going to talk about that towards the end of the video. So please keep in mind that setting intentions for a solar eclipse is different from setting intentions for a regular new moon. So if you don't know what the difference is, please stay tuned. And since this will be a longer video due to the eclipse component, please take advantage of the timestamps that are available to you via the description part of the video. And that way you can maybe take it in strides or go back and forth between parts of the video that you want to re-listen to. Again, just check out the timestamps. All right, so let's get started. First of all, I want to talk about eclipse season, which is the time before and after the eclipses, the time which we experience the greatest downloads and the greatest shifts. So eclipse season starts on December 16th and lasts until January 24th, 2020. And eclipses usually come in pairs. So we have at least one solar eclipse and one lunar eclipse. Sometimes there's 3 or 4 eclipses as well. But this time there's one solar eclipse, one lunar eclipse. And so this eclipse season starts 10 days before the first eclipse and continues through the time of the second eclipse, which will be exact on January 10th, and ends with the lunar eclipse cycle that ends around the time of the new moon in Aquarius, which will be on January 24th. So that's why we have eclipse season between December 16th and January 24th. So I hope that's not more confusing than I was trying to do here. I was trying to explain it. Anyways, let's just talk a little bit about what happens between those dates, right? So between December 16th and January 24th, really just allow for new templates to download, stay really centered as much as possible, do your best to ground yourself from within, try using conscious breathing and conscious flexibility, and best of all, see if you can move to the observer position when it comes to your emotional and mental body. Only because we might experience, a peak or peaks of emotion and mental restlessness during the time of the eclipses. So just if you do experience that, if you can, go into the observer position and see if you can just observe as this is occurring and let yourself know that it's okay, we're in eclipse season, all is well. Things are just reorganizing themselves right now a little bit. And remember, this won't last forever. On January 24th, all the downloads are completed and everything should be back to normal. Who knows? But I won't guarantee anything with what's happening in 2020. But yeah, definitely eclipse season will be over. Now, eclipses are a time of clarifying and affirming our highest path. So we're bound to experience a release of some sort and a recalibration. And that's why, the emotional and mental body can sometimes go a little bit out of sync or feels a little bit intense sometimes, or there's some anxiety that can occur or uncertainty that we can experience because old codes will get deleted and new ones will get downloaded. So especially in connection with the Capricorn energy, which has to do with laws of matter, earthly ambitions, contributions to society, and living in pure accordance with our conscience from a place of maturity and inner guidance. And all that is Capricorn at its very highest vibration. Now, the sun and moon are connected to one of the moon nodes during an eclipse. And this is why an eclipse is taking place. So the moon nodes are always emphasizing an evolutionary upgrade, and that is what's available to us during eclipse times. So eclipses switch between south node and north node eclipses because depending on where the sun lands. So if the sun lands on the south node, it's a south node eclipse. If the sun and the sun and the moon. If the sun and the moon land on the north node, then it's a north node eclipse. Now, the last eclipse in July, that was 6 months ago, was a north node eclipse in Cancer. And so what we really, as this is coming to an end, this eclipse phase, we really kind of want to look at what have I discovered about self-care since July, and how have I been doing at taking care of my emotional well-being, or what emotional needs are calling out to be met, and what is coming to completion since July, or at least moving to the next level. So some of the things that intentions that you've been setting in July for that north node eclipse in Cancer, we're really kind of like looking to see how is that now moving to the next level, or how has it come to a completion in some way for you. And so this upcoming eclipse is connected to the south node because it switches every 6 months, right? So the south node eclipses can really help us release energies or attachments that are no longer in service to our soul's evolution. So it's a very high soul calling that we're experiencing during eclipse season. And there's really wonderful and great shifts that are available to us during eclipses. So we get to redefine how we're moving with this particular energy in our lives. And in this case, the Capricorn energy, right? How do we move with Capricorn? So now we started 2019 already with a south node eclipse in Capricorn on January 5th, which was in 15.5 degrees of Capricorn. And now we're ending 2019 with another south node solar eclipse in Capricorn. So clearly this whole year is sort of like sandwiched between these eclipses. And so this really indicates that we're continuing to release or redefine certain outdated structures in our lives, or we take a more serious look at the commitments we're ready to make, some of which would definitely be long-term in nature, but they need to be mature and they need to be really in alignment with that highest vibration of Capricorn. So anything that's connected to some of the more lower vibrational energies of Capricorn would need to be released or redefined. Now, the last south node solar eclipse in 4 degrees of Capricorn, which is the exact same degree as we're experiencing it on December 26th, was on December 25th, 2000. So literally 19 years ago. We're likely to experience a resonance between now and that time. And it's definitely going to be resonant and not identical. So that's really important to remember with any transits. Whenever we talk about looking back to a date that happened previously where the same aspect took place or the same type of thing took place, we always want to remember it's never going to be identical. Never. There is no such thing as the same event reoccurring multiple times more than once. It doesn't happen. Even if it's similar, it's not identical. So that's really important. Nothing ever happens twice. So think back to the winter of 2000-2001. Were there any major endings or beginnings in your life? And what was important back then to you? And if you were to take those priorities to the next level this time around, where would that next level find you? So just allow yourself to kind of like feel into that for yourself. Like, what did that feel like in 2000, 2001, the winter time? And just allow yourself to kind of like draw parallels to what's currently occurring in your life and how you might be taking some of these things to the next level. Okay, now if you're looking for more guidance on some of these questions, I would suggest that you take a look at your natal chart. So that's your birth chart, right, that you came in with. the house placement of the eclipses will indicate which area of your life is going to be most ready to release outdated structures and go to the next or new level of consciousness. So the house placement is an area of your life, right, that will be most impacted by this eclipse. Now, if that appeals to you to check that out, and if you don't know quite how to do that with your own chart, then feel free to check out my 30-minute class, How to Read My Birth Chart. That is available for free on my website on the homepage. If you just scroll down to a link that says free class and then click on that, that will get you that class for free. But you might also want to join us on December 16th for the last forecasting forum of the year, where we will look directly at our own birth charts to see how this upcoming eclipse will affect each one of us. So that's available too, and feel free to sign up for that forum also on my homepage if you scroll down to the forecasting forum countdown. Now, solar eclipses are a good time to go within, to seed anything you would like to accomplish or restructure or redefine for the next 6 months. So we'll dig into this in more detail in the next session of this forecast. But let's talk a little bit about Capricorn here. Since Capricorn represents the quest for mastery on the physical plane, some useful questions you can ask yourself for this eclipse would be, what is my relationship to the physical world right now? Not what is it in general, what is it right now? And do I respect the laws of matter? And am I going about things in a realistic way? Again, we're talking about right now, right? So it's not about what have you been doing previously up until, just a year ago. What have you been doing this past year, right? Like since we've had another eclipse in Capricorn also at the beginning of the year, what's been going on in terms of, are you going about things in a realistic way? How committed am I really? How committed am I really? That's a very Capricorn thing, right? Being really committed to something. Where does my inner compass point? And what am I willing to undergo to overcome adversity? And what if I simply release outdated, rigid structures in my life? And so that, of course, those outdated, rigid structures, that would be connected to more of the denser vibration of Capricorn, right? So we really want to take a look at, is there anything that we can let go of that is no longer serving us in regards to the physical, how we approach physical stuff, accomplishments, manifestations, who we want to be out there in the world, publicly, within our society, all those things. Now, some other questions you can ask in relationship to that Capricorn energy is, what are my favorite shoulds? So very often with Capricorn, especially on a more denser vibration, we tend to should on ourselves. So what are my favorite shoulds? We all have them, right? We all have shoulds, I'm sure. So what are your favorite shoulds? And what shoulds are putting unnecessary pressure and judgment on me? If we want to take it a little bit deeper, right, in terms of the shoulds, because there are shoulds and shoulds, right? Some shoulds are, kind of like, whatever. And then there's some other shoulds that are pretty heavy hitters, right? So what shoulds are putting unnecessary pressure and judgment on me? And where do I need to reclaim my power? And what might be possible for me long term if I moved from shoulding on myself to making an empowered choice for myself? And that is one of those questions that I very often also ask my coaching clients, because there is often this thing where we think that we can accomplish more when we say, I should be doing this, or I should be doing that, or I have to, or I need to be doing this. When we put that pressure on ourselves, we think that we do better when we put that pressure on ourselves. But really what happens very often is the moment you put pressure on yourself, what ends up happening, if the pressure builds up too great, then we tend to rebel against ourselves. So even though we're saying to ourselves, I have to, I need to, I should, at some point we reach a limit where we go, I'm not doing that. That's it. I'm definitely not doing that. Whether we do it consciously or unconsciously. So some of us who have like an issue around procrastination, for example, you guys might be looking at, some very heavy hitter shoulds in your life, right? And that's why you procrastinate. Now, instead of shooting on yourself, to actually move in a different direction, to say, I am making an empowered choice for myself. So instead of saying, I should be doing this task right now, you can say, I am making the choice to start this task and to complete this task. And then you can also be flexible around it, because shooting on yourself has very little flexibility. But when you are empowering yourself with a choice, you can be flexible. You can say, I'm starting this task, and I'm also willing to be flexible around, how far or how much I do and when I complete or when I finish this task. Just to see what's realistic, what's happening, what's working in the now. And Capricorn, or its highest vibration, is very interested in what works and what doesn't, what's feasible, what's realistic. Now, if you want to have access to the new moon questions of this particular video and the full moon videos every month, feel free to check out the various levels of membership on my website at astrologercoach.com. If you're already a member, check your membership portal by signing into your account, and you will find all posts inside the My Content tab. Okay, so that's available for all my members. So you have that in writing in case you want to like meditate or journal on those questions. Can be very useful. Now, the new moon solar eclipse questions will be available via the Solar Eclipse in Capricorn article, the latest by December 18th. Hopefully before then already, but the very latest by December 18th. Now, back to the new moon solar eclipse. The highest vibration of Capricorn is the development of responsibility, resourcefulness, reliability, self-mastery, and the ability to set realistic goals and healthy boundaries. Now, healthy boundaries is one of those things that very often, that gets misunderstood quite often. We think that by setting, like, by putting a wall down, that's a healthy boundary. Or when we're saying no, and it's like an absolute no all the time, forever, that's when we think that that's a healthy boundary. And, sometimes, certain boundaries start out as healthy boundaries where we're just saying no in the moment to something, where we're having a built-in flexibility with that boundary. But very often these healthy boundaries then end up being rules or regulations that become rigid boundaries. So we want to take a look at that. Healthy boundaries is being present in the moment and deciding what works and what doesn't in the moment. An unhealthy boundary is a boundary that's rigid, that has become a rule, a regulation, or a principle for the future forever, or for too long of a time, where we're not actually considering the now moment. So that's just something to think about with boundaries. Now, the next 6 months are a perfect time to work on all of these areas. So responsibility, resourcefulness, reliability, self-mastery, ability to set realistic goals, healthy boundaries. We can all work on these. And we've already started working on these, in the beginning of the year of 2019. But even in 2020, we can still work on these things we can take it to the next level. Now, as best as you can, prepare for the future. Make commitments and recognize responsibilities. In other words, nurture your dreams in a realistic manner. And focus on setting and achieving practical and attainable long-term goals. One step at a time, one day at a time. And this is not about immediate results. And this is very important because a lot of us are so conditioned to want to see immediate results, right? Like in Western society, we're very conditioned that everything has to be like right away, right now, like our deliveries right now, anything that we want to know and understand on the internet right now, right? And a lot of stuff is accessible to us right now. But it is important that when you're building attainable long-term goals, that these goals don't happen overnight. We don't achieve self-mastery overnight. We don't achieve being an expert at something overnight. That's usually not an immediate result. So we need to be patient. Capricorn is very much about patience. And it's also about the quality of the foundation you're building. So it's about the quality rather than the fastness. So Capricorn also invites us to set the kind of realistic limits and boundaries that allow everyone involved to learn from the consequences of their choices. So what you can ask yourself here is, where am I able to set realistic limits and boundaries? With myself, with others, in life, with situations, with relationships. And where was I unable to do that before now? So we've already had a little bit of practice at the beginning of the year with the first eclipse in Capricorn. But now we get to practice even more of that. So now that we've also been through an eclipse in Cancer, which has sort of shown us how to nurture ourselves and how to be good to ourselves, now we can get back to that Capricorn energy in a more nurturing way, hopefully. And so where was I unable to do that before? Set realistic limits and boundaries. And if those lapses were about fear, what might I be afraid of happening? And that's always a good idea to look at our fears, right? Because fears are so destructive and they can be so emotionally immobilizing, right? Fears can really immobilize us. So taking a look at your fears in a loving, kind way is really, really important. Now, if those fears came to pass, what would be the worst of that? And that can be very helpful to explore your fears in that way, because very often we don't even have a concrete idea of what the worst of that would be if that came to pass, right? We have this unknown fear. Very often fears are not very concrete. Fears can be sometimes just an emotion or a feeling that simmers in the background without us even knowing exactly what we're scared about. And I mean, if we have an idea what we're scared about, we certainly very often are not necessarily asking ourselves, well, what's the worst of that? So asking that question is very profound, because it can help us to understand, like, would we be able to handle the worst of that? And if we can handle the worst of a fear, then so what? So then is it really important for us to stay in fear? So it can be a profound tool to use if there is fear showing up in our lives. Now, this new moon solar eclipse aligns with Jupiter in Capricorn. It also trines Uranus in Taurus, and it also squares Chiron in Aries. So let's unpack that. And I think some of these aspects here sound familiar. Maybe for those of you who watched our last video, we had Venus in a similar degree to the eclipse point. And so Venus was also aligning with Jupiter and trining Uranus and squaring Chiron. So we talked about it a little bit, but let's talk about it in the context of the eclipse. So first, let's focus on the alignment with Jupiter. This gives us an opportunity to be encouraging and optimistic with ourselves and others as we deal with limitations, challenges, or pressure in our lives. Because a lot of us have been experiencing this, right? Because there's so many planets in Capricorn, including Pluto and the South Node, and there's Venus was in Capricorn for a while as well. So there's so many planets in Capricorn that we all have been experiencing this sense of like, well, how do I deal with my own limitations or other people's limitations? How do I deal with these challenges that are showing up or adversities? And what about pressure, right? Because pressure can be very real with Capricorn. So our perspective of what we have endured or worked towards since early 2019 might change, because Jupiter brings sort of like the opportunity for us to shift our perception. And so we're starting to see some possibilities in connection with our long-term goals and the structures we have been building or rebuilding for some of us over the last several years, right? Especially since Saturn moved into Capricorn December 2017. So ask yourself here, what's the bigger picture that I can now see? What has changed in regards to my perspective since early 2019? And what no longer feels useful in my approach to my long-term goals? And what if I got really real about that? And could I be courageous enough to acknowledge what's not working and simply correct it? And could I see the humor in my fallibilities and limitations, and other people's fallibilities and limitations too, right? Because we all have them. I mean, we're human beings. So could we see the humor in that and maybe just allow ourselves to have more of a lighter approach there? Now let's talk about the trine to Uranus. So Uranus is the energy of innovation, unconventionality, and breakthroughs. So what does that mean now that the eclipse is making a trine to this energy? This combo really gives us an opportunity to bring an innovative approach, one that serves future progress, to the building of our long-term goals that are already underway. So for example, when we use our own unique talents and create possibilities in our business or long-term approaches, that brings about expansion. That can really blow things open. And especially stuff that we've already been working on. So ask yourself, what if I could bring both more excitement and more personal vision to what I'm aiming for long term? And what might an unconventional approach make possible for me and others? Okay, now, questions, right? So again, feel free to meditate on them. Feel free to journal on them. Feel free to only have them, in the back of your mind as you're going through this eclipse. And of course, since there are a lot of questions, pick the ones that really are the most juicy for you. You don't have to work with all of the questions. Now, before we talk about the square to Chiron, let me briefly mention that Uranus in Taurus is in a mutual reception with Venus in Aquarius at the time of this eclipse. So this means that they are in each other's sign, and therefore they support each other's agenda. And this is very helpful, right? When planets support each other, that can be very helpful. So this really provides an opportunity to bring a common vision and a more human approach to our interactions with other people. So we might see that in the outside world, through the way we engage with certain causes, but we also will see it in our own lives, in our own, communities, or the way we engage with other people online or with our friends or our networks. So some of that will be nice and flowy. Now, the last thing I want to mention with the eclipse aspects is the square to Chiron. So this aspect could cause us to feel impatient and or triggered. So of course, the highest vibration of Capricorn is be patient. But then with Chiron Aries, we might not be so ready to go there, right? So definitely bring as much compassion and kindness to yourself and others as you can muster during the time of the eclipse. This is an opportunity to look at our insecurities and sensitivities with kind eyes and an open heart instead of harsh judgment. So it's really important to keep your heart wide open. If you can, as best as you can, notice when judgment shows up, especially self-judgment. We all do it, of course, but but be as kind with yourself as possible when it does show up. And ultimately, embrace your own humanity. I mean, that's really what it always comes down to with Chiron, right? Is embracing our own humanity, keeping in mind that as humans, we experience pain, we experience shame, we experience separation, but we can heal through the unconditional love and self-acceptance of the spirit-human alliance. So remember, you are human, but you also are a spirit being. So as we're bringing those two parts together more and more, as we're allowing ourselves to be in a more multidimensional reality rather than just a dual reality, which would be more the human perspective, but really allowing ourselves to be more in this multidimensional reality, that's when we're able to really bring more of that unconditional love and self-acceptance into some of these places that are, tender or human. So what you can ask yourself here is, what might be possible if I was willing to just be with my insecurities and past wounding without trying to fix them? And this is something we do sometimes when it comes to these sensitivities that we have, or these insecurities that are connected to the Chiron wound. And of course, it's connected to a childhood wound. So we tend to sometimes think that there's something wrong with us because we have this insecurity or we have this sensitivity. We feel ostracized or different there. So we try to fix it sometimes, right? We try to go, well, it's human, right? To go, well, this is not working, so let's fix it. But with Chiron, this is not fixable. It's not something we can just fix. So it's really important to embrace it and say, this is part of me being human. So what if my attempts to fix these insecurities or sensitivities were the very thing keeping me from seeing the divine perfection of it all? And I think that question really is sort of like, it's very beautiful in how it just encompasses right away what that Chiron is all about. Now, and one last question you're going to ask here with this Chiron Capricorn square, or Aries Capricorn square, where besides career and other long-term goals could I channel my impatient masculine energies into something that satisfies me on a physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual level? Because remember, Chiron is all about holistic approaches, right? Wholesome approaches. It's all about connecting the dots, connecting the physical with the emotional, with the mental and the spiritual. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Saturn, because Saturn, of course, is the ruler of Capricorn, and therefore a very important planet in this solar eclipse chart. And of course, Saturn is moving through its own sign already since December 2017, and will do so until March 2020. And then will do so again between July and December of 2020. So it briefly moves out of Capricorn and then it comes back because of its retrograde phase. And so, planets sometimes move back and forth. Now, Saturn has been long associated with karma, and this is simply about understanding the laws of cause and effect. So what I put into something is what I get out. What I sow, so shall I reap, and so on. Right? So that's very much connected to the Saturn energy. Now, given this, ask yourself, and be really honest with yourself here if you can. Some of us have a hard time with that, but I'm included in that, by the way. I'm not saying that I'm not. Sometimes I have a hard time being honest with myself too, because there's just it's human, right? It's human. Sometimes we want to feel better about ourselves than all the things that we're not doing well, or the things that are that make us feel like we're not doing great. But anyways, ask yourself and try to be honest with yourself here. Am I doing whatever it takes Am I realistic about time and the use of time? Am I realistic when it comes to my ambitions and long-term goals? And especially with these questions, I would say, try to really sit with these questions rather than trying to answer them right away. Because it's easy to just go yes, no, like, oh, of course. But really let yourself sit in this and see if there is more intuitive stuff that comes up in relationship to these questions. It might be really useful. Now, Saturn advises us to choose realistically, as we've said already many times, also in relationship to Capricorn, right? Because, of course, Saturn is the ruler of Capricorn. So Capricorn and Saturn will have similarities, right, in the way they do things. So ask yourself, am I true to myself? Does the progress justify the effort? Am I in touch with my limitations and abilities when it comes to building something long term? And again, some of these questions resonate back to what we already talked about with Capricorn. But one thing we want to remember is that with this many planets in Capricorn, and Saturn included, of course, which is in its own sign, it is really important for us to take breaks, or at least slow down and allow ourselves to tune in and stay grounded, and to allow ourselves to take the pressure off a little bit. So if possible, seek tools and people that help you conduct a truthful exploration of your abilities and limitations. I think that's really important. Now, Saturn in Capricorn wants us to work hard and put our energies into practical, useful, and meaningful projects. So it reminds us to live in the here and now, right? Again, it's about being present. And this here and now is all about building a solid foundation, understanding that moderation and patience are necessary, not only for our spiritual growth, but for our physical accomplishments as well. So you can only accomplish something that can truly last long term if you take your time, if you're patient, if you're really, building something solid. So ask yourself, what daily practice might bring about a masterful result? What might be possible if I took 5% more responsibility for my inner limitations and restrictions? And given that Saturn rules Capricorn, Saturn's placement in its own sign plays an important role with this eclipse and beyond, of course, until it changes signs in March of 2020. And then again, when it goes back into Capricorn between July and December of 2020 as well. So while it's in its own sign, basically, it does play a really, really important role. And if you'd like to know more about Saturn's journey in Capricorn and how that is impacting you personally, feel free to check out my webinar on the subject that's available for purchase on my website. I will put a link below this video in the description part, so you can just click on that link so you don't have to look for it on the website. And there's also a 30-minute excerpt that's available for free. So I'll put a link for that as well below the video. Now, Saturn also conjuncts Pluto in Capricorn in this solar eclipse chart. And this conjunction will be exact at 22.5 degrees in January 12th to be exact, of 2020. And the last time we saw a Saturn-Pluto alignment was in November of 1982, and then again May-June of 1983. And back then, that happened in the late degree of Libra. So as you can see, this is quite a long cycle, anywhere from 35 to 37 years, in fact. And so it's time to think seriously about what no longer works for us, both individually and collectively. And so you can ask yourself here with this conjunction, what old structures in my life are not in alignment with my soul purpose? And where in my life do I feel an inner pressure to commit, to something that feels emotionally authentic to me and requires me to grow up and stand in my power? And where am I asked to face my fears and some harder issues? So this is what happens when Saturn and Pluto come together, and especially in Capricorn. There is really some heavy hitters that can happen, but it also really helps us to get more authentic and more real about what we're here to manifest and to do on a soul level. So even though it can be really difficult sometimes to process some of these things and to move with some of these things, long-term speaking, this is a good thing that this is happening. It will really open our eyes, individually and collectively speaking. Now, some other questions you can ask here is, what needs to be transformed or discarded in order to find healthy ways to support myself and others, even considering everyone's limitations? So we have to remember, right? Everyone deals with limitations. It's just part of the human condition, collectively, individually speaking. We all have them. We all have them differently at different times, different issues, different areas of life, different things, right? So my limitation may not be the same as somebody else's limitation, right? But we all have them. So what needs to be transformed or discarded in order to find healthy ways to support myself and others, even considering everyone's limitation? And especially considering everyone's limitation, I should say here, right? Because we need to consider that. We need to consider that everyone has them. Now, how can I take a nurturing approach to my current limitations, to the limitations of other people? How can we take a nurturing approach? And how can we just be real about it? That's just a fact of life. You know, a lot of us go through life going like, pretending like people don't have limitations, or pretending like you yourself don't have limitations, right? But that's just a fact of life. We all do. So how can we have a more nurturing approach to that? You know, and instead of trying to pretend like it's not there. And how might it develop a practice around my understanding of what I'm capable of and what I'm not capable of? How can I develop a practice around understanding that a little bit better? Okay, now we also discussed what's to come for the whole year of 2020 and how that all relates to our natal charts in quite a bit of detail in the preview of 2020 webinar. And you can join us live on December 16th, or you can get an MP4 video recording of this webinar on my website after December 16th. So just click on the link below the video in the description part. I will add a link there for that, so you can access that webinar either live or via the recording. Now, both the live event and the video recordings are included in all of the Star and Superstar memberships. So feel free to join our online community and get lots of free stuff and other goodies all year round, if that resonates with you or if that pulls you. And again, click on the link below this video for more information on that. Or you can also go to my website, to the homepage, and just look at memberships. Now, to sum it all up for this solar eclipse, let's just say we are invited to take a new perspective and bring a new approach to being a mature, responsible citizen of the world, whilst also honoring our own unique talents, being okay with being different. In other words, human beings who make a difference one by one, even when it seems as though we're too little to create a shift on our own, no matter how small an action may seem, or an intention that we're setting or that we're moving with. Every pebble makes a ripple. And remember to focus on yourself. Whatever others do or don't do, it is not relevant. This is your journey. It is your path that you want to be focused on. And nothing great was ever achieved by focusing on other people's mediocrity or limited perceptions. We also want to keep in mind, on the flip side of that that no matter how amazing someone else's life seems, we're all human and everyone has stuff to work through. No one comes to this planet without a desire for evolutionary growth. They wouldn't come if they didn't have that desire, right? They would stay in the spirit realm. So it is who we are and why we're here. And I really believe that. Now, speaking of evolutionary growth, part of this journey and much of our evolutionary growth comes from adversity. And that's a very Capricornian thing. Inner strength and self-reliance come almost entirely from overcoming challenging situations. Obstacles are the mirror that life uses to show us where we might become more capable, how we can grow, and where we have drifted from contact with outer reality or inner truth. So what you can ask yourself here is, am I right on track with what I'm doing? Am I growing? Am I evolving? Am I facing my challenges? Is it my track that I'm currently on, or am I on someone else's track? Right? Am I in alignment with the track that I need to be on? And what obstacles can I see from here? What challenges can I see looming up ahead? What if there was value in those challenges? Would I send them my gratitude if that were the case? If I knew that there was huge value in those challenges, would I send them my gratitude? And what if I responded to all situations in a way that respects and serves all those who are involved? And I think these are great questions to ask, because a lot of us will feel challenges. A lot of us will feel pressure, with all that Capricorn stuff and with Pluto and Saturn conjuncting and all of that. So I think just allowing yourself to move through these questions can be helpful, especially all the way through January. Okay? Now, as best as you can, allow yourself to be in a quiet, receptive state on the day of the eclipse. And since the eclipse happens at midnight in the United States, or on the East Coast at least in the United States, you may want to be in a receptive state the day before and the day after the eclipse, right? Because since it's right in the middle between those 2 days. And if you're like most of us and you have other obligations, then just take 5-minute breaks here or there as much as you can, as much as that's possible. Get quiet with yourself, your higher self, connect with yourself, and just see, what might be possible if you gave that to your body and your mind on a regular basis, over the next 6 months even, right? As we're moving through this eclipse energy for the next 6 months. Now, I just want to mention also briefly about 2020 that, I wish for all of us to enter 2020 with more gratitude, to be alive and to be filled with faith in the evolutionary process that is ongoing within all of us. And may we all participate consciously in the evolution of existence on this planet, not coming from fear, but from the knowledge of our inner strength and our own personal power, the power of our heart and our humanity. Because that power is really what counts. That is the most important power there is, our heart and our humanity. And so really trust your inner truth and knowing as best as you can. Trust your inner truth and your knowing of that, of this powerful heart that you have and that humanity that you're part of. Now, if you have an ascendant or any personal planets in 0 to 9 degrees of Capricorn, Cancer, Aries, or Libra, then this eclipse is definitely going to impact you much more than others. And then also want to invite you to look at the house placement of your natal chart again. That 4 degrees of Capricorn, where does that land? What area of life is most affected by the solar eclipse for you personally? And again, if you want to better understand how this might impact you personally, join us live on December 16th for our last forecasting forum of the year, where we will also look at all of 2020 and the upcoming eclipses. And if you're not yet a superstar member of my online community, register via my homepage. You can scroll down to the countdown of the next forum and click on register there, or you can also click on the link below this video. All right, so that's what's available. Before we talk about setting intentions, I want to briefly also mention my biggest holiday sale ever that I've ever offered. So I want you guys to be aware of that, just in case you are at all interested in diving a little bit deeper into astrology, and in particular into soul-based astrology, which is what I teach. So take advantage of a 50% discount to all of my soul-based astrology courses online. And those are part of the soul-based astrology curriculum. And you can also get certified by doing this curriculum if you take all of the courses, all of the classes, if you do all of the home assignments, and if you do some tutoring with me as well. So all of this only lasts until December 31st. So definitely take advantage of that if you have been thinking about doing something like that. And again, there will be a link below this video. Also, you can go to my website, to the online courses tab on the website, and just click on that and you'll see the discounts there. All right, now let's talk about solar eclipse intentions. A quick word about that is, you may recall that this process is a little bit different for solar eclipses than it would be for the regular monthly new moon. So the biggest difference is that when we're setting intentions for the eclipse, we're setting it for 6 months, right? So it's not just for the next 28 days. And therefore, first of all, we want to make the eclipse intentions more powerful and definitely align them with the Capricorn energy. But we also don't want to set intentions right away after the eclipse, because there's so much energy coming through us in terms of the upgrades and in terms of the energy that's moving through us at that time, that we want to wait at least 48 hours until this energy has settled a little bit before we set our solar eclipse intentions. And of course, as always, avoid moon void, of course, phases. That stays the same. So the best and most potent times to set our eclipse intentions this time around will be between 12:21 a.m. on December 28th until 12:13 a.m. on December 30th. And all this is East Coast time in the US, New York time zone. And if you live outside of the East Coast time zone, and you don't want to convert time zones, if that's not your thing, or you know it's too complicated, I suggest that you can join my Facebook fan page, or you can follow me on Twitter. I will be posting several reminders on December 28th and on the 29th to let you know when it is time to set your solar eclipse intentions. All right? Now, whenever you set them, make them powerful, right? They're for the next 6 months. And for more information about setting intentions, go to my website, go to my blog page, and then look for astrology articles or a tag that says New Moon Intentions, which would be either on the right-hand side of the blog page. There's categories and tags. If you're on your computer and if you're on your phone, you have to scroll down all the way to the bottom to get to the categories and the tags. So unfortunately, you have to go quite far. So that's available. And I might also put a link below this video so you have access. You can just click on the link as well. That might be easier, right? Now, to sign up for my free monthly newsletters, you can do that via my homepage at astrologercoach.com, or just email us at info@astrologercoach.com and just write newsletter into the subject line. My newsletter is sent out approximately once a month, sometimes more often. It has the special offers, videos, announcements about what's going on with my business, my courses, my retreats, and all of that stuff. So if you're interested in getting these newsletters, feel free to sign up. And then also, if you have any general questions about astrology or about eclipses in general, something that I haven't covered in this video, feel free to email me at info@astrologercoach.com. if you have personal questions that require of me to pull up your birth chart, then I will ask of you to book a reading via my website at astrologercoach.com, via the services page. And also, I do want to mention as well that I will not be taking personal questions at the next forecasting forum on December 16th, which is different from what I normally do. And the reason for that is that we will cover a lot of material, because we will talk about all of 2020, and it's going to be an eventful year. And we will also do the eclipses. And so there's so much to cover that I will probably not be able to get to answering personal questions at that forum. But, you know, I have mini readings available on my site. You guys can also book coaching sessions with me. So there's a lot of stuff that you can do if you do want to connect with me personally and get some of your questions answered, okay? So feel free to do that. Now, my members will see me in 2 weeks around the time of the full moon lunar eclipse for another video. Everyone else will see me in about 4 weeks for the next new moon around the time when eclipse season ends. Unless you register for the next forecasting forum, then you will also get access to the next members full moon lunar eclipse video as well. So remember that that's available to you. Have a fantastic, happy holiday to all of you who I won't be seeing on December 16th, and a happy new year. For those of you who I see on December 16th, we will do more of that at that point. I'm looking forward to continuing to support all of you in 2020. Have a good one. Stay healthy, stay happy, stay conscious, and stay connected with yourself. All right, have a good one. Much love. I'm astrologer coach Sonja Francis. Goodbye.